put this at the beginning of the video. If you don't watch the rest of the video, in the 20-second version of today is you're going through your short-term list and you're asking yourself, what are the most important items for me to accomplish in the next 90 days? And then you put them on your weekly agenda as quarterly high-level projects or goals. What is the most important thing you accomplish in the next 90 days? Here's the detail. All right, I want to have LOS up today so we can recap where we're at and really show you visually, especially today's part as we get into quarterly goals. So make sure we're all on the same page. So we started in core values and goals. You started with a 10-year vision. We put it in here on this tab. Same thing with core values, and then your 1-year plan, what we're going to try to accomplish this year to take us to the 10-year vision. And then we created your hard drive, which was just a placeholder list of information, anything that you just need to remember or store somewhere. And we review this weekly very quickly to decide if it's something that needs to maybe be moved to a to-do. And then we have that on the hard drive. And then we did just a dive into everything we could possibly think of: goals, hobbies, projects, to-dos, blah, 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 anything we've ever thought of and we could get out of our brain onto the short-term list. And last week, we sorted it into long-term and short-term. The way we did that is we went down line by line and asked ourselves, is this something that needs to be accomplished in the next 90 days? And if it was not, we moved it to the long-term list, right? And this is kind of how I do in my head of like, okay, it's not something this quarter, but maybe it's next quarter that I wanted to do it. So you could put Q2, Q3, or whatever you wanted to do, but you're going to look at this long-term list in your quarterly review every 90 days and resort it. Maybe it stays on the long-term, maybe it moves to short-term, maybe it's a goal, maybe it's just a to-do, whatever it is. And so then you're left with whatever's on your short-term list. And our goal today's video is to comb through it and come up with our quarterly high-level projects, quarterly goals, whatever you want to call them. Different than to-dos, in the sense that like a to-do is something that you could probably accomplish this week, and your quarterly goals or high-level projects are stuff that's going to just take longer than a week, generally, not necessarily have to accomplish. And then we throw those here on our weekly agenda, and we're going to flesh out this whole page next video, but the first thing we want to do is finalize our cleanup of the short-term list. And they'll go right here. So I have them labeled as quarterly goals currently. I may change that. I've been trying to think of the right word because goals doesn't quite capture it fully because it's also projects. And yeah, so what you're going to do is you got your short-term list, go through it and ask yourself, okay, what are the most important things that I need to accomplish in the next 90 days that if I accomplish them, would help me and take me towards the achievement of our 1-year goals and achieving that 1-year plan. And you come up with 3 to 5, 6, 7 max, probably ideally. 3 to 5 is kind of the sweet spot, especially if you're doing this, if you're thinking in terms of career. It gets a little trickier when you're taking the holistic view of your career and personal achievement goals, because you could just have a lot of them. If we look at like just our 1-year plan, it's not crazy to think maybe you would just have a project/quarterly goal for each one of these items, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in this instance, right? As this example is. And that's fine. Maybe you want to do something this quarter that takes you for that goal. But we don't want it to be overwhelming. That's the point, right? You really need to accomplish these. This is the most important thing that you accomplish in the next 90 days. And you really want to think of these in terms, SMART, S-M-A-R-T. I always forget what that means, but it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, I think, is the R. That one always gets me. And then time, something to do with time, which means it's very time specific, I think, something like that. But you really want to make sure, ultimately you want to make sure that it's something that you can really measure and track, and it's very clear when it's done or not done. Because every week you're going to review it and you're going to say, am I off track or am I on track? And if you're off track for accomplishing it before the quarter's over, then you need to rethink about it. It needs to be go back on your short-term list during that weekly review or a to-do to get progress on it. And maybe that to-do that week is rethink that rock, figure out what my next step is, right? So that's what we're going to do here in today's video. Depending on how long your list is, this could be a while. And at the end of it, your list is going to consolidate, but it hasn't gone away. What else remains on this short-term list after you've gotten your quarterly high-level projects done? And the answer is, well, last week you should have eliminated anything that didn't need to be done in the next 90 days. And so what likely remains is just to-do list items, things for you to get done in the next 90 days. And it may be something that can be accomplished this week, or maybe you don't have enough time for this week, but maybe it's next week or it's 3 weeks from now, but it's definitely something that needs to be done in the next 90 days. If you come across anything and you're like, actually, that doesn't, move it to long-term, think about it next quarter. And we will flesh out the weekly agenda next, and that's where you will put your to-do list items, or you'll throw them on the daily. We'll talk about that more in the future. But every week you'll come to the short-term list, you'll look at it and think, okay, I have time for this week. This is important. I need to get that done. And you'll focus on getting it done that week. This video, again, was just about getting your quarterlies, the high levels, the most important things to accomplish in the next 90 days.